So today we are going to be going through Brian Harpole's interview on the Shawn show. And we're just going to go through it piece by piece. We're going to take our time. And I think you're going to be shocked by what we uncover in this episode. So stay tuned for Revelation Underground.
Welcome to the stage, it's the tale untold. Shane, the black swan breaking the mold. In a world of chaos, he rises from the fray. With wings spread wide, he's here to slay. Dark shadows lurking, but he won't back down. Black swan revelations, moments alive. Chains break barriers, watch and thrive. In this kingdom of dreams, we're brave dare to fly. The black swan's the limit, reach up to the sky. From the ashes he soared, a phoenix reborn. With beats in his heart, he's ready for war. Lyrics like daggers, sharp on the tongue. In the game for the throne, where legends are hung. Echoes of truth ringing loud and clear. Black swan revelations, moments alive. Chains breaking barriers, watching thrive. In this kingdom of dreams, where the brave dare to fly. Black swan's the limit, reach up to the sky. So welcome to the show. Let the good times roll. With Shane as the black swan, we're free, we're whole.
All right. So let's get started, shall we? Let's jump in. I'm going to go right into this. If you know me, I like to dive deep on subjects that are of interest to me. The Keystone, was it the Scott's Keystone Bridge, the one that collapsed, forget the name of it, but I spent a few days on that. Spent a few days talking about the river stabbing that happened, I think it was in Minnesota. Talked about that for a while. Talked about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And then, of course, from time to time, I've been talking also about Charlie Kirk's assassination. So, and I've also been getting a lot of flack. This is not an easy subject to go through this stuff. I've heard people come on my channel slamming Candace Owens, saying she's anti-Semite. Don't listen to Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. As soon as you start asking questions about Charlie Kirk, that's what they say. They're like, you're anti-Semite. Right away. Boom. And all we're doing is talking about Charlie Kirk. And today we're going to be analyzing and talking about this gentleman, Brian Holman, who was in charge of Charlie Kirk's security, private security. And there's a difference between police, security, private security, and even then bodyguards. There's so many layers. So we're going to be talking about that as thoughts come to my head while we watch this show together. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments as well. Be respectful to other people as well on the channel. No cussing, all this kind of stuff. Although I think on Brian's show, I think he cusses from time to time. I do not. So you're pretty safe there. But sometimes some of the content that I show, sometimes the guys that are being interviewed, sometimes they cuss. And this is why I call this Revelation Underground. This is for big boys, big girls. This is for grown-ups. This isn't for people that are used to milk and cookies. So if you're used to milk and cookies, then I could recommend a few other shows for you to just get the basics kind of thing. But if you want to go conspiracy and you want to look deep into some of these rabbit holes, then you've come to the right place. We pull no punches here. All right. So let us begin with this interview. And there might be, from time to time, I might fast forward it, depending if I get bored or whatever it is, because there's some important topics that I want to make sure and cover in the next hour or so. So here we go.
Brian Harpole, welcome to the show.
Pleasure, Shawn. Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you for coming, man. So, very heavy interview today. And so you were in charge of the security detail in the company when Charlie Kirk was assassinated exactly 2 months and 1 day ago.
Yes, sir.
And, I've been really quiet about this matter because so many people are out there on it, and it's a real shame, but it just got to be so much that I just did not trust my own eyes, ears, what I was reading, what I was watching. And I think a lot of people have sensationalized this. And and that is a real fucking shame. And it makes it impossible to find the truth.
I'm going to pause this for a second. You're going to hear things in this video, and I want you to just put this on the shelf of the idea that people asking questions, seeking the truth, are going to be painted as bad guys. As in, it's not cool to ask questions. It's not cool. And it's kind of like that with some of our schools, where you have to put your head down and you have to focus on your subjects for like 6 hours a day or whatever. I was never good at that. I got kicked out of class so many times. It was ridiculous. It's amazing I ever got anything done. My daily routine was out in the hallway. That's where I spent a lot of my school years, out in the hallway. Say this because there's something about when someone says, don't talk about this, that makes me want to talk about it a little bit more. So if you're in the comments and you're like, don't talk about this stuff, I'm bored with it, go somewhere else. Honestly, go somewhere else, right? So we're all here because we want to see what was going on the day of Charlie Kirk and leading up to it and the aftermath and all this kind of stuff. And what do we learn from this kind of thing? What can we learn? What's underneath all this? And ultimately, we're trying to figure out who killed Charlie Kirk and why. And it's not the kid on the roof, the 22-year-old, or however old he was. You can lean on the idea that he may have done it, but he didn't do it alone. Unless you can convince me 100% that he did it alone, and right now they're not doing that. I think he had help. And as we talk about this and listen to the people that were actually there, like Shawn Ryan said, after a while, I'm not trusting my eyes. It's because we're looking at the narrative, we're looking at it physically, but people are telling us other things, and it makes us question what we see. And that's what I'm trying to uncover here. All right, so Sulu, engage.
It is, and it's not a word, but You said sensationalized, but it's like evangelized, right?
Evangelized. Hang on to that word. That's a word that this guy Brian just made up. It's not evangelism, it's advantagealized, which means when something like this happens, an assassination on American soil, in broad daylight, in public, in front of cameras, and people start asking questions, you're taking advantage, you're evangelizing the situation in a free and democratic state. You are exercising your First Amendment, the right to speak. And you're using it as a sword coming against all the people that you should trust. So he just made up a word. Let's continue.
Just to take advantage of it, it's almost like sickening, and it has been. And really, that's kind of what drove me to come here.
Well, Brian, I know you and your team are taking a lot of flack, and you know, and I commend you for the courage to come out and talk today on the show, and I just want you to know, I mean, you know, I'm not a combative interviewer. I do have some tough questions that will be at the end, the questions that I've seen all throughout the internet, questions that people have, questions that I have. Some of them may seem a little absurd, but I think it's important to, you know, just address all the major ones, at least all the ones that.
Isn't it funny that the people that we think are the toughest SOBs are the ones that, hey, I know your team is taking a lot of flack, a lot of abuse. You guys might not be able to handle it, even though we have a bunch of ex-military operatives in your organization, top of the tippity top, sheriffs, ex-police, but you've been taking so much flack. And I'm not combative. I'm just gonna throw you some curveballs. I don't want to throw you any change ups or any sliders or anything. I don't want to dust you off. So I'm just gonna lob a few questions at you. It might seem uncomfortable for you. We don't want you to ever feel uncomfortable, because God knows you're risking your life in front of people to use your body as a shield in front of people. So I don't want to make you uncomfortable with softball questions. That's how he's presenting it. It's weird.
That are on my radar. And so I just, once again, want to thank you for coming.
Nothing's out of bounds except for something that may be covered in the NDA that I did for a specific incident for them. And so if that's true, I would just say that. But literally, that's the big thing, is that I'm sitting here, but the team is here. And that's the big deal. And you're representing them.
So another way to say this is, there are people watching Brian, and he signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, basically saying there's certain things that he can't talk about because there could be people watching this interview, higher ups. So he has to mind his P's and Q's. He has to be careful what he says, because his team is here. Everybody's watching this interview from his organization and other people, other players.
I want to, and I also just want to say, you know, one, rest in peace to Charlie Kirk, and God bless his family. And number two, I've lost friends, and I'm familiar with those type of scenarios. And I just want to say that I'm really sorry for what you and your guys are going through with losing your friend.
Thank you.
And also with everything that's coming along with that. So,
Yes, sir.
but everybody starts off with an introduction here. Brian Harpole, a highly decorated law enforcement veteran who served as a police officer in Texas for 14 years. In 2008, you entered the private security world as operations manager.
Okay, this is going to be important for our talk today. pay attention to where this guy grew up, what he did, specifically in Texas. This will be very important for us.
For an elite Texas-based security firm where you specialized in executive and personal protection. Now you are a global private security contractor and trainer running your own company, Integrity Security Solutions, across 5 continents. A graduate of Columbia College, you earned a Master Peace Officer license from the state of Texas, along with graduating from the International Law Enforcement School of Police Supervision in Southern Methodist University's Cape Intelligence Program. Most importantly, you are on the stage with Charlie Kirk as the head of his contracted security detail on September 10th when he was assassinated. It's been 2 months since this tragedy, and there are a lot of unanswered questions, and people are starving for some answers. I know a lot of people are going to be very interested in what you have to say today.
Okay, so just pause for a second. He said he was trained. He's an ex-police officer, 14 years in Texas. Studied at the International Law Enforcement School of Police. So basically, what these guys do is they teach you strategies on how to protect people, surveillance, all this kind of stuff. So they're not like the Army. It's not like that kind of a boot camp. What they're doing is usually they'll bring in people that are already trained. So now they're just responsible for teaching them how to get out of a situation. So that would be kind of the difference. They're not set up. They're not designed to engage in firefights, if that makes sense. The idea behind it is, how do you get the person that you're protecting away from the disaster area as quick as possible to make them safe? So that's kind of how their mentality is. They're not teaching them how to shoot sniper rifles, operate various handguns, all this kind of stuff. That's not their MO. Part of it could be driving vehicles really fast, all this kind of stuff. So and I've looked up this organization, the International Law Enforcement School of Police. They've been around for a little bit, and they specialize, again, like I said, in teaching courses to not only sheriff departments, police, all this kind of stuff, to say, hey, this is how we operate in these types of scenarios when things start to escalate. And we share strategies on how to de-escalate and all this kind of stuff. So it's usually for people that are semi-retired, maybe they're switching careers, they would go and take these courses, and maybe with the idea of either creating their own organization one day, or maybe becoming a bodyguard, whatever it is, or joining an organization. So hopefully that makes sense. They don't really talk about that too much, but that's kind of the 50,000 foot view.
But I just kind of want to give it to you right now.
Oh, and one other teeny little thing. You might be wondering, why does Shane have a bit of a dog in this fight? Well, I used to work for not this company. Hang on one second here. I used to work. I just want to show this because this is let me see here. Yeah, basically these guys used to be called PWI, I believe, but now they're this company here. I wanted to share this with you to show you. Yeah, I'll have to find the guy, because it doesn't seem like that guy's there. But I used to work for a security company called PWI. And basically the idea was you would actually secure areas. So you weren't a bodyguard, you weren't anything like that. You didn't have a handgun. The most you would have would be, you would either have a set of handcuffs, which is kind of weird in itself, because technically you couldn't arrest anyone. You could maybe detain people, but really with what we were doing, if we were at concerts and maintaining security in venues, mainly what we would do is if something got out of control and the person wasn't harming anyone but was creating a disturbance, you would contact the city police. That would be our role. So we couldn't come in with snipers and guns and all kinds and secure the place and all this. That wasn't our job. We weren't even bodyguards. We're just making sure that we were a presence and there was some kind of order and people were allowed to have fun, basically was the idea behind it. So I just thought I'd share that because I did that for a while. I had to secure locations all downtown Calgary, different venues, Stampeder games, football games, all this kind of stuff. So when this guy talks about what he can and cannot do, I could relate to some of that. I can convert it over for you guys to go, yes, like 100%, he can't put snipers on the roof. Like he cannot do that. You can't just show up on American soil and start putting snipers everywhere unless you're the president of America. So we'll get into more of that, but I just thought, just for context, share that with you guys. So let's continue.
And give you the opportunity on why you've decided to come out.
You hit it. It's there's so much out there, and there's so much out there that's not true. And I was talking to your staff earlier. I'm older, right? And I have guys on my team that are our team that are younger, and if the truth doesn't get out there, it could hurt their 20 more years of work, and that's not fair.
Yeah.
And these are stellar individuals.
Yeah.
These guys are stellar, and we've worked with just about every agency and police department across the nation and in the larger government, FBI, Secret Service, and I've got guys will come up to me and say, "Where did you get your guys? Where did you get these people?" And the only response I've ever been able to make sense is I just tell them, and I prayed them in, and they came in, and our selection process.
So that's kind of interesting. I prayed him in, and I understand a little bit of that. I get it. The idea that, hey, if you have a business, a company, and you are looking for people to fill a role, you pray about it first. I have no problem with that. And then you go through their resumes and you start hiring people. So it's interesting that he said, I prayed them in. Don't know if they're all Christians. Could be. It's possible. Don't know. But we'll find out a little bit later. But I think it's important that he leads with this, saying that we prayed him in. And Shawn would go on record and say he's a Christian as well. So
is unique, unparalleled.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, and so
I like that cross on your jacket. I thought it'd be good to start this episode with a prayer.
Absolutely.
You okay with that?
That's what we all should do.
All right.
Yeah.
It's going to be super simple here. Jesus, I just want to thank you for having Brian here today. And we have just a couple of goals today with this interview, and that we ask that you be here with us in this interview. And we just want to bring some answers to unanswered questions here today and avenge Brian's team of these accusations and conspiracies. And we basically just want to clear the air and get rid of the confusion. And we hope this helps. And we also just want to pray for Charlie and his family. And we hope that this rise in political violence comes to an end real fast. Amen.
All right, good prayer. Interesting that I saw Shawn cross himself. So it seems like there seems to be a trend of a lot of these YouTubers, social media giants. They're Catholics. A lot of them. I think Candace Owens would be the first one to say that she's Catholic. Tucker Carlson, not sure. Don't think so. Don't think so. But when you start seeing people do the cross, that tells me they're Catholic. So I kind of pinpoint it pretty quick as to kind of what they know about Christianity. Perhaps maybe I'm a little judgy, little too quickly. But if that's your first priority is to make the cross sign, that tells me you're a Catholic. Tells me because I don't do that ever. I'm not a Catholic. So that was interesting to me. So I got to get rid of saying so many times. The reason why I bring this up is people use Christianity like it's a blanket. They say I'm a Christian. They put the name of Christ, not Jesus, but they put Christ on their tattoo. They call themselves brothers, whatever it is. They just throw that out there as a little blanket. And you have to really look underneath the surface. Because not everybody that says, Lord, Lord, will get into heaven. Okay? We're just being crystal clear here. So I'm not out to pick apart Shawn Ryan, Brian Poole, what's his name? Harpole, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. I'm not going after what they believe or don't believe. I'm going after the truth of an incident that happened on September 10th. That's what I'm going after. So we can pick about this part on another episode, but I think in order to stay focused, if you're going to lose your mind because somebody says a cuss word, or if because somebody does this and you're like, I can't watch. And then you go watch Friends on Netflix, you're being a hypocrite right now. You're being a hypocrite. So let's just stay laser focused on this, because I know it's tough with an ADD world. It's very tough to be laser focused. So we're asking for the next hour or so to focus, treat these people as human beings, and let's just see. I'm not talking about not calling these guys liars or anything like that. That's the fun part. If they're lying, you can call them out on it. But again, I'm not going to just dismiss them because somebody makes a cross. Okay? Are we being fair? Fair enough? All right. Let's go back.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I believe in that. Power of prayer is unbelievable.
Me too.
I've received prayers from people from all over the world and text, and I would tell them they're heard and felt, and they are.
Good, man.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple of things to get through.
Let's do
Man, this seems like I don't even want to give this to you, but everybody gets one, so I got to do it.
What's that?
But
Oh no!
everybody gets a bag of gummy
Absolutely.
bears.
I was looking forward to it for a couple reasons. One, my fiance loves this type of candy, and so I'll definitely share it with her.
Right.
And they're known for that, and so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I have a Patreon account. It's a subscription account. They've been with me since the very beginning when I started this in the attic of my house. And it's turned into one hell of a community. And so one thing well, Brian, like I said in the interview, I want to really clear the air with a lot of things. And it's going to be some uncomfortable questions. But
one interesting thing that he said, and I wrote this down, was as he prayed, Shawn said, we want to be able to avenge Brian's team. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Nobody's been tried in court yet, so it's kind of interesting that we're already there with the idea of avenging the team that let Charlie Kirk down. that let his family down, that allowed Charlie Kirk to be killed. We need to avenge them. No, we need to fire them. We need to fire them. If you messed up the one job that you had, you should be fired, to be clear. But let's hear this guy out a little bit. This is like a little mini court here. So I don't want to fire anybody right out of the gate, but my gut instinct is this guy should be, Brian Harpole should be removed immediately. He should have been removed yesterday. In fact, he should have been removed September 11th. The show shouldn't be about avenging Brian. Otherwise, you should put that in the title. Avenge Brian. Nobody knew about this guy until he came on the show.
You know, I've thought a lot about how I would do this interview, and I think it is probably most similar to the Blackwater one that I've done. And so one of the things, you know, I'd like to talk a little bit about your background, your company, the training that's involved in your company, and then we'll get into some actions on and stuff. But, you know, I mean, this is just so wild. I mean, we have heard it was a right-wing nut, a left-wing nut, Israel, a trans person's boyfriend. I mean, and at the time, there were compelling arguments for every single one of those avenues, you know, and I think, you know, there's a lot of people that don't believe that this Tyler Robinson kid is the shooter, but I just, you know, we'll dissect all of this stuff as we go on, and then at the end, I want to ask what questions you have, you know, from somebody that was being there, somebody that had their hands, the first ones to have their hands in the wound. But
whoa, first ones to have their hands in the wound. That's interesting. That's an interesting analogy, because the first person that I think about that actually had his hands in the wound was Thomas, doubting Thomas. So you have to kind of listen at the language here that maybe Shawn is throwing out to his audience. Don't know, because if he starts being combative to Brian, the interview is over. It is done. It is done. So maybe there's some little codes that he throws out to his audience. I don't know. I'm not a military guy. But if you approach this from a spiritual point of view, asking the Holy Spirit to pop things into your head, then maybe you can go, you know what, I'm going to do a little bit deep digging, because I prayed about this a few weeks ago. I'm like, Lord, you know what? I wouldn't mind helping uncover if this is something like a JFK, I would like to help uncover it. If it's not, then allow me to see something that would say, no, Tyler Robinson is the lone shooter with a 30-06. We have proof. Here's the video footage. Done deal. I will let this thing go. But they're not doing that at all. Instead, we get shaky cam, blurred footage. I've never seen anything like this before. It's weird. So I'm hoping in the next few weeks or so that every once in a while when I share videos like this, that maybe we can look at it from a different angle. And it's interesting. He said, you're the first person that actually placed your finger literally inside the wounds of Charlie Kirk. Wound, the neck. He put his fingers in the neck of Charlie Kirk. So I think this is an important interview. And I said right out of the gate, on the day of, 30 minutes after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I went live and I said, this to me feels like a Black Swan event. A Black Swan event is an event where it changes your world almost overnight. Almost overnight. Like things change the next day. And then another thing that happens is people try explaining it away. So it's highly improbable. That fits the criteria. Nobody thought Charlie Kirk was going to get shot on that day. You can say people knew about it, whatever. That's the same thing as what happened with 9/11, but nobody spoke up before. There were no prophets that said Charlie Kirk is going to die tomorrow. Nobody said that because they'd probably be touted as crazy or whatever. So Black Swan event is something highly improbable. And then when it happens, it changes things for that world. Financially, whatever, has to change overnight. So we're not quite there yet, but something shifted. Something shifted. And I feel like what happened is we really began to not trust media sources. They were telling us what we saw in front of us is not the truth. I think that was the Black Swan shift, where all of a sudden now you get ChatGPT, Sora 2, all kinds of AI programs, Gemini on Google. Like anytime you do searches now, everything is constrained. Everything is starting to be rewritten. All the Wikipedia pages are starting to get rewritten. And then after a while, you're like, well, did Charlie Kirk actually get shot? Because I don't see any evidence anywhere. And in fact, when you go to the place, there's no trap door. Shane, don't you know? I'm like, I swear there was a trap door right there. I promise you. I thought that's what I saw. No, look at it. It's pavement, Shane. You're crazy. Something shifted where all of a sudden people started to wake up. It was like they were red-pilled or something. And then you try and explain it away like it never happened, or that you're wrong. You're an idiot. You're a conspiracy guy. You're a terrorist. We're going to talk about this because there is an idea out there that if you are thinking politically against a organization that at the time seems to be politically right, and you don't agree with that political organization, you could be targeted as a terrorist. That's coming. You could be on the left thinking that Trump on the right is a bad guy or whatever. You could be counted as a terrorist one day. Or let's just say Trump loses his presidency and then someone from the Democrats becomes president and you don't agree with that Democratic president, you could be considered a terrorist. And there's ways to treat terrorists. And it's usually fast. And this is going to come up in this. And we're going to talk about this, but you have to kind of take your time and unpack this stuff. So people that are on social media, it's going to become disgusting for people that don't want the truth to be exposed. It's kind of like the vaccine stuff. If you talk about vaccines, YouTube will shut you down. I know I didn't even talk about it. I talked about something else. I had to go to a retraining school on YouTube. Basically, do you agree that vaccines are harmful? And I'm like, oh man, that's a trick question. Why are they tricking me? So I had to go through all that stuff. I'm like, no, vaccines have never caused any harm to anyone on earth. Never. And you check all this stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? And I wasn't even talking about vaccines. But Charlie Kirk assassination is like talking about vaccines because people start going, oh, I see why you're doing this. You're anti-Semite. You're like that crazy nut Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly. You're crazy like them for asking the truth, for talking about Charlie Kirk. Put it to bed, Shane. Stop talking about Charlie Kirk. It happened September 10th by a lone gunman, 22 years old, crack shot, 124 meters. One chance. I don't buy it. I buy it for a second. Something is up. And this is me risking my channel because I could be one day in the future be called a terrorist. I could be. People, you just get enough people that hate on you. They hate the way you look, the way you speak, whatever it is. And they just say, that guy, we need something on him. He is a terrorist because his political views are different. There are organizations out there that will say that. They don't care about the crime itself. I want to be clear here. They don't want to, and I'll talk about who they is after a while, but there are people that don't care after the crime has been committed. What they care about is the bark. They don't, like, the bite is inevitable, is how they think. So you have a dog, the dog is barking, you know that dog is going to bite you. That's how they think. It's inevitable that dog upstairs is going to bite you. Why? Because he's barking. Could it be because he's hungry? No. Could it be because he needs to go outside? No. Could it be because you've ignored him all day and he just wants to play with you because he's barking? Could it be because the neighbor might be trying to break into your house and he's barking? No. It's because he's going to bite you. And there are people out there that think that. So it's very much like that science fiction movie, which at the top of my head, I can't think of it right now. You guys know it's a Tom Cruise movie. Tom Cruise is one of my favorite actors. I've watched just about all of his movies. The Minority Report. They had a whole organization called Pre-Crime. They would go and arrest people before they did the crime. So there are people that are like thought police, that if you think wrong thoughts, you could be considered a terrorist. This is coming, folks. This is the next wave. This is how you take Christians out. You make them, you say, you know what, that person read something from Exodus. Ooh, that's hate speech. Hate speech just happens to be under the category of terrorism. So I guess you're a terrorist now. So we're going to confiscate your Bible. We're going to knock on your door. We're going to confiscate your belongings, your home, everything. And we're going to send you to jail right away. We don't want to wait for due diligence or due process. We want to send you to jail right away. And that way it'll be a lesson for other people that have wrong thoughts. Because if you have wrong thoughts, you're going to be arrested. And you think I'm crazy for saying this stuff, but this is the 50,000 foot plan, if you will, of where they want us to be. So I know some people are going after Candace. I know that, but you have to think about what you're actually saying. And I've had people in my comments, they'll say things like, I hate her face. I can't stand her face. And I'm like, do you understand what you're saying right now? Do you understand what you're doing today in this day and age? And you're telling it to me when I tell you I like her channel, I like her as a person, I follow her, and you're on my channel and you're telling me hateful things about a person? Like, do you not have any kind of, is there something going on in your life that you can't even hold it back, that you're able to do this on someone's channel? Like, and I've had people say this stuff to me, and I'm like, I haven't even got into their lives or anything like this, Trump's life, anything. I'm just trying to deal with what's going on in front of us, and people are just losing their mind. It's weird. That tells me I'm onto something. Otherwise, they would just leave it alone. Again, we have to be careful about this stuff. I get the idea that if you're like, even with regards to Shawn Ryan, if you like him or not, whatever. The question is, are these guys lying? Are they doing it intentionally? Like, I have a feeling that this Brian guy is just dumb. I just have that feeling. Maybe he's just dumb. Because if he knew all this stuff, that makes him diabolical. That makes him evil, wicked. And I'm not prepared to go down there. So I put him in a category of dumbness, that this guy's just dumb. There's something going on, or he's been brainwashed And on this kind of stuff, he's dumb, but everything else, he's genius. I don't know. There's something going on here. Can't quite put my finger on it. All right, let's go back. Let's go back.
So let's start with, let's start with a little bit of your background in law enforcement and what qualified you to get into this type of.
I came from a law enforcement family, and my dad was a cop for 47 years, and he was a worker. He is still a worker, and he was kind of like a role model for that. And so I was kind of.
A worker is an interesting term. I'll just make that note, put it on the shelf, worker. It's interesting in the world of professional wrestling, which I used to watch quite a bit, especially in Calgary with Bret the Hitman Hart and all this kind of stuff. Used to watch that, but there are two kinds of people in this world. There are people that think professional wrestling is real, and there are those that think it's fake, and they approach it from the perspective of there's no plan, that people just do things and that's it. There's no work involved behind it. But if you understand the idea that it is entertainment, and anytime they do an angle, that's called a work. Why? Because they're working the audience. They're working you to make you believe that Hulk Hogan was able to slam a 555-pound giant, 7'5", 555 pounds. So to make that work, you have to believe that they're not friends and that they hate each other. And if you believe that, then they have you, and you'll go buy tickets and you'll be like, man, I can't wait to watch Hulk Hogan crush Andre the Giant and all this kind of stuff, right? That goes way back. But it's called a work. If you buy into it, it's called a work. There's kayfabe. Basically, the idea is wrestlers maintain their character when they go out in public, but in private, they act normal. Bret Hart used to practice kayfabe all the time, even though he was at war with his brother Owen Hart. They would sit at airports and they wouldn't even talk to each other because they maintained kayfabe, the idea that they're at war with each other. So when this guy says, my dad was a police officer for 47 years, he was a worker, I take that word and I put it on a shelf. Worker. You know who else does work? Prostitutes. They would call that a work. Prostitutions. They are called workers on the street. So be careful, right? Like when you're talking about prostituting yourself, you're giving yourself over to some entity or some organization telling you what to do. Here is your work. Here is your job. And again, I'm not saying that this guy is responsible 100% for killing Charlie. I just think he dropped the ball and he should be let go. He should be fired. He should be dismissed. All right, so pay attention to those kind of words. Let's continue.
Kind of hell-bent when I was in my early 20s that that's not what I was going to do. And then just kind of got gleaned into that, recruited into that, and did 14 years of that. And kind of my area of specialty was I had the ability to go out and find bad guys. And that was kind of what I did. And whether it just, seeing the physiological movements of people in crowds or even in cars and or the way they walk. And so you notice it, you recognize it, and how you can look at the way they act when they see you, or they're trying not for you to see them. And so you can couple that and use that to make contact and conversation with people, and then you find.
So you may not be understanding. It took me a couple of times. I'm like, wait, what is he saying? Brian's superpower is to be able to look at people and tell if they're a criminal or not, just by how they look, how they dress. I can pick people out of a crowd and go, that guy's a bad guy. That guy's a good guy. That guy, he's a bad guy. I can pick them out. So this is why I wanted to jump into this organization. This is why I wanted to create it, because I was very good at it. And I'm like, yeah, but that's actually illegal. You can't judge people before their day in court. You're not allowed to do that. We got things called laws. You can't execute people on the spot just because you think that maybe that person is a murderer or that person stole someone. You can't do that. That's frowned upon in the United States of America. You can't look at people and go, bad guy, good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. I'm saying this because this is how these guys think.
A lot of bad guys. And so I kind of specialized in that, and then also did emergency medicine. And so I had some really great mentors. Like I said, my dad, a guy named Jerry Venom, Bill Wayburn, Keith Lane, just phenomenal mentors in law enforcement that just kind of took me under their wing and or slapped me when I needed it. And we all need it sometimes.
Have you ever exchanged gunfire?
I've been shot at, and then shot guys with a lot of the times with non-lethal shotgun rounds.
You have, so you know what it's like to be shot at.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Okay, so he shot guys non-lethally. What does that mean? That means he used a gun that was most likely loaded with blanks. That happens in the movie industry, by the way. You're never supposed to be handed a gun that's loaded, but you're supposed to treat every gun as though it was loaded. Like I mentioned before, I used to work for a security organization. I got my PAL license. I was able to purchase a handgun. I never did purchase a handgun, but I was able to use handguns because I needed it in order to get to handle weapons on movie sets like Inception. I was on the movie. I actually held a M16 machine gun in the winter scene. But the fire marshal, the gun wrangler guy, he handed me the weapon. He says, look, there's no pin in this. See the trigger? It's not connected. And he opened it up and showed me, and he says, look, there's nothing in here. There's no bullets here. Right? And he pressed the trigger and he showed me everything first. And then he handed it to me. He says, don't point it at anyone. Consider it as it's loaded, especially when you're not in the scene. Don't point it at anyone. I find that interesting. So we were taught not to point handguns at people. And when you shoot guns with blanks, you treat them like they're a real weapon because they have gunpowder and everything. And if you held a gun to your head, you can actually kill yourself, unlife yourself because of the gunpowder, the gunfire, the concussion, everything like that. So we were to treat every gun as though it was loaded, even though some of them were even dummy guns, wooden guns. You still wouldn't point it because you had to be in the habit of not pointing guns at people. All right, let us continue. Oh, and with regards to that, he said he shot people. Not true. What he's saying is in a training scenario, when they're using gunfire, blanks, they're teaching people how to react so that when a person gets shot, you don't duck and you're falling down and all this kind of stuff because you got to react quickly. So they would train these guys with blanks to fire. Obviously, they wouldn't use live rounds on them obviously, because of too many accidents. But you can notice things like if you're firing a shotgun and there's wadding in it and you fire it close to someone, you can see the poof of their hair go off because it's air. It's compressed air, all kinds of stuff. And it hurts if you're using bean bags and all kinds of stuff. But I think what he is saying is in their training regime, they used gunfire to simulate scenarios of being able to protect the people that they're around, that they're actually surrounding. They have to be able to get used to the idea of gunfire, and they have to get used to the idea, is that a shotgun blast I heard? Because then the guy's got to reload, or if he's got a semi-automatic, he can fire again, multiple shots with the shotgun. Or is this a single shot rifle? Or is it a 30-06? What is it? What are we hearing? Or is it fireworks? What are we actually hearing? So they have to go through the assortment of what different guns sound like, because I'm assuming a machine gun sounds a lot different than a handgun, and you need to be getting down if it's a machine gun. But if it's a handgun or a single shot, you might have a couple of minutes to clear the X or clear the area. So these are little terms. These are things that these guys are thinking about while they're in their training.
Yeah. You feel it. I mean, I was close enough one time. I remember a guy shot at me with a shotgun, and you don't. I remember that. It kind of sounds weird, but you see, I remember seeing his hair puff up because the shotgun was so short.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I remember seeing the wadding come over my head. And,
No kidding.
yeah, and so I was like, that means he missed, because wadding's after the bullets, and but
well, it's kind of a weird way to put it, because wadding could also come over your head if you're firing the gun in the air to tell people, look, there's gunfire, and you fire a gun into the air, a shotgun or whatever. Depending where you're pointing the gun, you could get wadding over your head. Depending how close you have the gun to you, the concussion could move your hair. That doesn't mean you're under a gunfight in Iran, or you're in a war-torn zone getting shot at. Because a shotgun pointed at you, chances are you're going to get hit with a shotgun, especially at close range, because they spread out. So it's weird that he would say, oh, I noticed the wadding go over my head. Yeah, well, you can explain that away. Just depends how you're holding your own gun. He's probably talking about himself. He probably held the gun too close, and when he fired it, the wadding came out or whatever, and his hair puffed up. It's probably him. But he's making it sound like that he is so experienced in shooting people and people shooting at him, which is not true. Being trained.
And I got shot at with a shotgun one time.
yeah.
And
No, I believe Shawn when he says I got shot with a shotgun.
Yemen. And I thought a fucking kid was holding a sparkler towards me. Turns out it was a shotgun.
You feel it. This guy was.
Luckily, I was in an armored vehicle.
A little over 40-something feet away, and so you feel it.
Yeah, so Shawn was in a armored vehicle when someone pointed a shotgun and shot at him in an armored vehicle, and he said it looked like sparklers. I believe him. I don't necessarily believe Brian now, because he's probably tapping into that to say, yeah, you know what it's like, and I'm going to use your experience, not my experience, and then we're on the same page.
Feel the blast, right?
Yeah.
And so, grace of God, he missed. And but that career, I kind of, like I said, had some really good guidance, and starting with my dad all the way up to these other mentors, and there was an expectation of work back then, where you went out and produced, integritized work, and you went out and found bad guys.
There's that word again, work. And now they're going out to find bad guys before they do the crime.
And then when you did that, you kind of got a skill, developed a skill. We called it, you started sharpening your own sword. And then that kind of helped me transition over into this field where it's about prevention and seeing it before it happens, right? And so that was able to really help me in this field go out and work, and even in austere places. And I've done some work in on the private security side.
So this is going to be interesting now. Take this stuff with a grain of salt, what he says, because sometimes we throw out words that we hope the audience doesn't catch on to. When you say, I'm in the private sector, I'm plain clothes, I'm off duty, all this kind of stuff. He's going to be talking about trafficking later, that he actually had to pretend to kidnap kids. Pretend. As in, they would show him around these darkest, deepest places of hell, and he'd have to pretend, is what he says, that he would buy these kids, buy these prostitutes, whatever it is, but because he was undercover, because he was plain clothed and nobody knew where he was, that he was there. Folks, this gets dark, man. Most people will call that a crime. If you're in a plainclothes uniform and you walk into a place and you're trading money and you're buying children, you're buying prostitutes, and you're telling us that it was just because I was undercover, nobody knew what we were doing. This gets dark, folks.
Makes law enforcement, the most dangerous stuff I did in law enforcement, pale in comparison. I mean, I worked cameras inside of cartel houses in Juarez.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were looking where kids were being trafficked, and we act like we went in to shop for children, and we were capturing that footage.
Shit.
And we got made inside, and then
That was as a civilian?
yeah.
Wow.
And then
So do you get that? He wasn't working. He was a civilian buying kids. And then they found out that he was actually a cop. And they're like, dude, why are you buying kids here? You're a cop. And they had to leave. They didn't get caught. They had to leave because they were trying to buy kids for sexual things. And he got caught by the cartel, these people that sell children. As a civilian, he got caught, as in, you're a cop. Why are you here? And then they left. He was a civilian buying children. What else can you surmise from this? Does it so casually? Yeah, I was just here as a civilian buying kids, and then they figured out that I was a cop. It's the same thing. If a cop goes somewhere to buy a prostitute in a town somewhere in Vegas or whatever it is, and they go, aren't you a cop? It's like, yeah, I am. Then he leaves, trying to act like a civilian, but he's a cop and he knows the rules. So I think he's doing this nonchalantly, and we're just like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense that you're a civilian and they made you and you left. If they made you, they should have killed you right there. But they didn't. They let you go. That means you were there as a customer. You weren't there as an undercover fed, because if you're an undercover fed or a cop or a private investigator, they would have probably chopped your little ding dong off. But they let you go because you're a civilian that was a cop, and you're doing it under your own guise. It's dark, doesn't it?
I did same deal.
Well, can I hear more about that? What-
Sure.
You were You were on a civilian contract to go into cartel homes.
Well, it was an NGO based out of Dallas that specializes in helping people that are trafficked, and
You're going to see Dallas, you're going to see Texas keep coming up. And there are organizations at the tippity top that teach law enforcement strategies, tactics, how to deal with hostages, how to deal with trafficking, how to deal with smuggling, all kinds of stuff, how to stop this, how to prevent this stuff from happening, how to prevent assassinations. Texas is like the tippity top when it comes to the United States of America for training people on this kind of stuff. You're going to see this popping up again and again and again. And Ted Cruz is the senator of Texas. And Tucker Carlson was talking to him about Israel. And this is where Tucker Carlson got into a heated exchange. Because again, I think for most Christians, we're like, yeah, we support the idea of God restoring Israel one day in the future. But these people today, some of them aren't really acting like biblical Israel, or maybe they are. Maybe they are actually acting like biblical Israel. When you think about it, for arguably 2,000 years, Israel was a nation that worshiped just about every god under the sun. And for 2,000 plus years, arguably 3,000 years, the Jews from the tribe of Judah would never be called Israel. They would never want to call themselves Israel. Most Christians don't know this stuff. There was a separation after King Solomon, and I know this sounds like I'm going on a little bit of a off to the side, but this is important because people get so mad and they start calling people anti-Semite and they don't even know what they're talking about. In the Old Testament, King Solomon, after he died, after 40 years of being a king, Israel got split into two. 10 tribes kept the name Israel, The two tribes on the bottom, Judah and Benjamin, wouldn't be caught dead calling themselves Israel. Oh, you mean Judah's anti-Semite? Well, not the way that you describe it. Anti-Israel? Probably. Why? Because Israel was worshiping other gods. They had two golden calves, one set up in Bethel, one set up in Dan. And they were known by their first king after the split, which was called Jerome. And he said, I'm worried that people are going to go to Jerusalem because they have a temple there and they're going to start worshiping and they're going to turn to Rehoboam, the Judah's king. I'm worried. I'm sick. I can't sleep at night. I worry about this stuff. That the Israelites from the 10 northern tribes are going to go back to their ways of worshiping one God. I'm worried about that. I'm worried sick. So he created two golden calves. And they worshiped every god under the sun. That's why they got carried away. They got dispersed all over the place. And they lost their inheritance. They lost their name. They lost their gene pool. They didn't know who they were because they were so mixed. But God said, I remember Joseph. And if you think Joseph from one of the patriarchs, from one of the 12 tribes, you would be incorrect. That's not what I'm talking about. Joseph in the Old Testament is also known as the 10 northern tribes. Ephraim, which is Joseph's son. He has two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Ephraim was the younger son, and he became like a firstborn. This is where we get the two half-tribes. Half-tribe Manasseh, half-tribe of Ephraim. Two half-tribes basically took over for Joseph. So when we say Joseph, we're talking about the 10 northern tribes. When we say Ephraim, same thing. When we say Jacob, typically we're talking about the whole 12 tribes, but not always. When we talk about Israel, we may not always be talking about the 12 tribes. And they have a history of not following God. And God's like, man, every time I punish you guys, you get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And he created a new covenant, which means anyone that is circumcised becomes a Jew from the inside out. You're not a Jew because you're a Jew on the outside. I hate to break the news to you, but you're not. A true Jew is one that is circumcised on his heart, and he knows Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior. That's a true Jew. If you want to get biblical, I'll get biblical on you right now. There's only one way to the Father. That's Jesus Christ. Everyone else is a pretender. If you call yourself a Christian and you don't believe that Jesus Christ was born of a virgin, died on the cross, rose on the third day, you are an antichrist. You are the spirit of the antichrist. I'm calling you out. You're not a Christian. I don't care if you say you are. If you don't believe that God has a son named Jesus Christ and you call yourself a Jew, you're not a Jew. You're using the name, but you're not a Jew. You're pretending. You're a pretender. Sam Altman calls himself a Jew. He's a homosexual. He was married. Peter Thiel, I don't know what he calls himself, but he's married. Peter Thiel mentored Sam Altman, who created your ChatGPT 5 that you use every single day. He calls himself Jewish, but when you press, he goes, well, I don't believe in God. That's just, my dad was Jewish. So just because someone says that they are Jewish, they are not Jewish. They could be from the synagogue of Satan. What? That's blasphemy, Shane. You're anti-Semite. Okay, well, let's use Christians then. If you call yourself an apostle, but you're not really an apostle of Jesus Christ, you're actually from the synagogue of Satan. So don't get all prideful on, oh, these guys aren't supporting Israel. Don't do it. Don't fall into the trap. It's not what we're doing here. You have to read your Bible. If you read your Bible, you would know that there is a plan in place that God is using all these nations to come against corporate Israel to teach them a lesson that you can't rely on your own gods anymore, little g. You can't rely on your weapons anymore. You can't rely on your science anymore. You have to rely on the one Jehovah God. That's what God's teaching them. There's a blinder right now. They hate Christians. They hate us. But that doesn't mean we need to hate them back, because they don't know. But that doesn't mean we accept lies either from anyone. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to uncover this stuff. So you got to drop the jargon of you're anti-Semite if you're coming against Israel. Because once you understand a little bit more about how Israel thinks, as you go up the tippity top, the food chain, they don't want you to worship your Jesus Christ, because you can get political after a while and you can start going, these people, these governments aren't really doing what they said they're doing, even though we voted them in, and they don't like it. I'm not just talking about Israel. The higher ups in America too, they don't like you when you start to ask questions. The FBI, the CIA, they don't want you to do that. They want to avenge themselves on you. They want to take you out because you're questioning the truth. And people will just respond to that and go, you're anti-Semite. And they don't even read the Bible or nothing. They just follow along. And we're just trying to uncover the truth. But I'm telling you, this goes deep. This goes deep. This is why we're watching this show. Because you got to understand how these guys think.
We were in El Paso working during the surge of people coming over to document that. And I was providing security for the people that were reporting it. And then I don't know how they came on the intel, but inside of Mexico and Juarez, there was a hotel that they found out that where the kids get warehoused. And so they were like, this would be great footage. And I was like, this is horrible, And so
so they had to watch, or they had to record footage of children having sex with grown-up men. That's what you call warehoused. Children were being trafficked into these warehouses having sex with men, and people like this guy would have to film it and pretend that they're civilians that want to buy children for sex. And then when they got made, they're like, hey, dude, you're a cop. Why are you having sex with these children? Not saying that this guy specifically, but I'm telling you, it wouldn't be so crazy. Or it would be crazy, but to jump over to that conclusion that there are Americans that will go and buy children for their pleasure and think they're off the radar, think that they're off the grid. There are bad actors that do this stuff. They're wicked people. They're wicked souls. They belong in the lake of fire. And these people will record this stuff pretending that they're civilians, and then when they get made out, they take off with all the footage, probably to sell it online somewhere. There's so much porn right now that is training ChatGPT. It would make your head spin. You would get sick. You would get disgusted as to what I know as to how the ChatGPT models are trained. They're trained on snuff videos. They're trained on pornography, orgies, constantly. They have people in places like Kenya that watch thousands of hours of gore, of people being mutilated over sex, bestiality, men with children, guys with guys, women with women, orgies, all kinds of stuff. That's what ChatGPT is being trained on. Why? It's so that if somebody uses a video or uses an image and say, hey, can you create an image of a guy with a child? ChatGPT knows what not to do. Why? Because it saw thousands of photos of men with children, and it knows what that's like. That's what you call basically language learning. It's learning how people interact with each other. And so it has guardrails to protect you, protect yourself, protect people from creating horrible images with Sora 2 and all these other applications. So the way that you have to train it is you have to show the good and the bad. It's the same thing with why there was a Tesla accident a few years ago. I forget which town it was in. But somebody thought, you know what? I'm not going to pay attention to the road, and a Tesla vehicle ran over somebody. And they look through the modeling. They're like, okay, what's going on here? What happened? Why did Tesla do this? There's a big uproar. Well, the model, the cameras and everything that make up the Tesla vehicle, when they're driving, they have cameras all around it. And it was trained that when people cross the road, most of the time they cross at the crosswalk. So it has video footage that it was being trained on to know, oh, there's a person crossing at the crosswalk. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Or if you're approaching a crosswalk, that people cross the highway at certain intersections, or they just jaywalk here and there, or whatever. What it wasn't trained on was the idea that a homeless person would push a shopping cart across the road and jaywalk in front of a car. And because it didn't have that in its model, it ran the guy over. Because it didn't have the training that says, oh, a person could be unpredictable. A person could cross at any time. So there was a big uproar in that. They weren't trained properly. So in order to train against pornography, you got to show it porn. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine doing that to your kid. Hey, I don't want you to know anything about porn, but here's a stack of like 50 magazines that I need you to read by tomorrow morning. Then you'll know what porn is. This is what was happening in places like Uganda, Kenya, all these other areas in Venezuela. ChatGPT would move in executively as a company, a research company, and they'd say, hey, here's our data file of snuff videos of people being raped to death, children being mutilated after sex. I need you to watch these videos, and I'm going to give you 5 cents for every picture that you watch. or I'm going to give you 5 cents for every 50 pictures that you watch. And what was happening is these guys were committing suicide after watching 10,000 hours of porn videos, snuff videos. And they would commit suicide, or they would never be the same when they come home from work, because they'd be on their computer all day watching porn for 10, 12 hours. And the longer you watch, the more videos that you watch, the more money you'd make. You could make upwards of like $5 a day. And they'd pay them to watch porn, to train these language models, these apps that we have today. And they would get divorced. They would end up becoming isolated. They would be like, I can't sleep anymore because all I have is all these porn images all over me, all in my mind, and I can't get rid of it. And I'm seeing kids being snuffed out, and I can't sleep because I'm watching it. And then I got to enter this data to train these models. And where do you think they're getting this footage from? It's from cops. It's from civilians that are going into these places and filming children having sex with people. And then they get made, and then they leave with all the footage, and they put it online to train programs like ChatGPT. And they extract the worst and darkest and deepest porn sites. ChatGPT is constantly combing these sites so that when you say, hey, can you create a picture of two women sleeping together? It'll go, no, that's outside of our rules. Why? Because it knows, because it's watched thousands of hours thanks to people that are being abused to have to watch this footage to train. And they would have a check mark that says, yes, this is wrong. No, this is right. Or yes, this is acceptable in society. No, this is not acceptable in society. They would have to train them. Telling you, man, you can't make this stuff up. Just read this book here, Empire of AI, talks all about that. It's horrible. Case study after case study of people quitting because they can't train these AI models anymore because their minds are becoming so corrupt. They want to unlife themselves afterwards. And there's something about your soul that gets chipped away when you see pornography. You just get, your soul gets chipped away, and you start looking at women differently. You start treating women differently. So you get guys like this that actually film a child. Instead of taking these guys out and stopping it, they're filming them having sex with children. And it's like nothing for these guys. They have no soul, no conscience. And then he prays before. Notice Shawn prayed, not him. I trust this guy as far as I could throw him. I'm telling you, it's evil.
We ended up going over and posed as shoppers, basically. And the guy gave us a tour, and we went into this room that was about 50 feet long, but only probably 10 feet wide. And you can tell, like, it was just bed. And these guys were, I guess that's where you go in and shop. I don't know, but nobody was in there. There weren't any children in there at the time.
Sure they weren't.
And then we went back downstairs, and we're in the lobby and kind of talking to the guy behind the desk. And you can tell he's like the I guess the front for it. And I saw a guy look through the window from outside, and with his head, he counted us like that. And then he picked up the phone and he said that into the phone. And I told him, hey man, we just got made.
Shit.
And so we ended up going out of more as a secondary exfil location. And we ended up having to go out in New Mexico instead of Texas. And so just got some great footage. But then we did other ones where I went to Piedras Negras and wore a camera and showed how people would come back across and, I won't say be harassed, but be screened. You have to pay a fee to leave Mexico, and then you get checked when you come to the border.
So he also worked with immigration as well, pretending that he's a civilian to see how they were treated as well or abused or whatever it is with hidden cameras. Like, man, this guy's seen a lot.
The middle of it, and then you get interdicted. Why were you there? What did you do? What did you eat? And then, so I'm getting interviewed, but at the same time, the camera crew was filming literally hundreds of people just walking across unabated. And so you got to see both of those at the same time. And,
Wow.
Yeah. And things like that. Really good missions in South Africa, doing things, same deal. And so yeah, there's good work to be done.
So you got a lot of experience.
I mean, experiences, I have got experience through experiences, you know? And so,
Such a weird
and
way
I've had
to say it.
it's really a gift, a luxury, and I'm happy to have it.
How long have you had your company?
It's not a luxury to watch children with men and filming it. That's not a gift. It's not a luxury. It's not anything to be. It's like, I got experience of experiences. Yeah, he's probably watched a lot of stuff. Probably shouldn't have, if we're talking about our souls here. Again, there's stuff, like I'm telling you, man, people don't want to talk about this stuff. They're like, oh man, you talk so much about porn on your show and that. Yeah, because it takes most men out. And it could have taken me out at one time in my life. So I know. The stats are off the charts. Probably 60-70% of the men in churches are struggling with porn. They've either viewed porn, or they stopped porn, or they're right in the middle of watching porn and they don't know how to stop. And the other 20 to 30% are lying about it, saying they've never watched porn ever in their life. And it's horrible that people do. They'll do that, and meanwhile they'll go back home and watch it. So we're talking probably 90+% of men in churches, Christian men, that have dealt with porn sometime in their life, or their family has been affected by porn, whether divorce or affairs or whatever it is in their home. That's almost 100% of people. There's actually an organization I thought about working with. They actually have guys teamed up with women that actually go and rescue workers in Calgary and do stuff. Like, they basically pull them out, which is interesting. So I thought about that. I thought it'd be, because they need guys to help them, because it's so dangerous in these parts of town where the women can't just leave. And to have a woman there, to drag a woman out, you can't, because there's guys there as well. So they're looking for volunteers to help men. So I thought about that. But that's not easy, man. You have to be prayed up as well, because there is wickedness in some of these corners that is just horrible, horrible. And so, yeah, when I hear people say that they're filming children and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, man, your soul is rotten to the core. I don't care if you're doing it for business or whatever it is. Whatever category you think you're doing, you should have stopped it. You shouldn't have filmed it. All right, let's continue.
We started Integrity 3 years ago, and we actually worked for another company prior to that with Charlie, and there was in 2022 is when we started it and started doing that. We worked for him for the other company prior to that, and there's some conjecture out there on the
For Charlie?
Yes, for Charlie and other accounts.
How long have you been working for Charlie?
Since I believe it's 18.
Since 18?
18, yeah.
So been 7 years.
7 years, almost 8 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
when you started the company, did you take is it the original detail that started in 2018?
pretty much the same guys. Yeah.
You guys have been together for a long time.
Yeah, we've added obviously and lost a few. Not different company. We lost that company lead or that company for reasons that we couldn't stomach that were going on. And that's why we started this company, and that's why we named it Integrity. We named things, and it's a we company.
It's interesting that he saw some sick and disgusting things with other companies, and then he named his company Integrity, almost to combat what he saw. And I do believe he saw some wickedness, that people were doing things that would make his stomach turn. So if you think filming children sleeping with men made your stomach turn, he probably saw something even more horrible than that. And that caused him to venture on his own. If there could be anything more horrible. I don't think there is anything more horrible than that. But
tell me about the vetting process to get into your company. What does it take to become a security contractor for Integrity? What kind of people are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a weird, for the industry, it's kind of weird. We have a group of guys that are either from the original, we call them the OG guys, and then we have the add-ons and that have come in, and then so a guy that wants to come to work for us, he has to get sponsored in by one of those people that are already here, and so I'd like to come to work for you, and so somebody vouches for him, and then he comes to our training facility. And we train, if you're in town not working a detail, we train every Wednesday. And
that is weird to vouch for someone. It almost sounds like a mafia type entity, because there was a movie called, what was it called? It was with Johnny Depp, Donnie Brasco, and how Donnie Brasco was able to infiltrate the mob was he had to pretend that he was a diamond jeweler guy, and he had to befriend a guy named Lefty, which was played by Al Pacino. And when you're made, it's interesting that this guy said they made us. That's a term that was used in Donnie Brasco as an undercover agent. You didn't want to get made by the mafia. And the mafia would only vouch for people. So they would ask Lefty, did you vouch for this guy? And he's like, yeah, I vouch for him. I give my life for this guy. So I think you're going to see more layers here, that this organization, Integrity, is more like a mafia, is more like a mob mentality as we go along here. And I'll explain what I mean a little bit later. The idea, again, is that if somebody's not doing what you think, you need to whack them. You need to get rid of them. You need to give them a fat lip. You need to slap them around, because he's been slapped around. He said it. If you step out of line, they slap you around. So if you step out of line, and it could relate to social media people, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, they'll slap you around if you're not towing the line. If you start talking about people that you shouldn't be talking about, they will come after you. They will slap you around. And if you think I'm kidding, it's because you haven't watched the whole interview like I have. And this is my second time going through this interview. This guy is singing like a canary, man.
So it's, defensive tactics, emergency medicine, techniques, PSB techniques, firearms. And so that's every Wednesday. And so they come out and they train with us for a nondescript amount of time. Some guys, it's a month and a half, 2 months. Some guys, it's 6-7 months. There's no timeline. And at the end of that time, the team gets together and they give them the thumbs up or thumbs down. And then if they get the thumbs up, then they start the vetting process of, what did you do? Are you a good dad? Are you a good person? Were you a good previous employee? You start just a normal vetting process.
It's funny, if I was a body language guy, and I'm not, I would look at a person that says something like when they go like this, like, what we do is after we figure out, after we vouch for you that this guy's a good guy, we have to find out if he's a good dad. We have to find out if he's a good person in society, if he has a good job, if he does things by the book. Like, that's a weird thing, body language wise, when you shake your head. Man, you're just the best friend in the whole wide world. It's weird, right? It's a weird thing. So I do pay attention to body language. I pay attention to where people's eyes move because I practice on my kids. I would go to the cookie jar and I would notice, because I love cookies, instead of 5 cookies, 1 is missing. And I would go to the bedroom and I would see my son there pretty quiet. And I'm like, and I don't encourage this tactic, but I felt like maybe I was inspired by the Lord. I said, God told me already the answer. I said this to my boy. He was probably like 6 years old or something. So what I'm doing here is I know what the answer is, as in I know you took the cookie because we made them and there was 5 and I can count up to 5. You can't yet. And there's 1 missing. So all I would say is God told me, and I'm asking you to come clean. And I'm only going to ask you 1 time. I'm not going to ask you and beg you or anything like that. I'm just going to ask you 1 time. And I want you to tell me what you did. Because remember, God already told me. That's all I would say. I didn't say, did you take the cookie? I would just say, I already know what you did. So it's your chance to come clean. And he'd start crying. He's like, I took the cookie. And then he'd show me under the pillow where there's half a cookie left or whatever. So I was pretty good at interrogating my children, because I would look them in the eye and I would say to my daughter, did you sneak out last night? And she'd be looking at me like this, blinking, because she knows if she looks away, I know she's lying. And she's like, are you asking me if I snuck out last night? I'm like, that's not the question. I'm asking the questions here, not you. So I catch my kids in lies just by looking at their body language. And I think you can do that at work. I think you can do that here online. And this guy's body language is all over the map. I haven't even had a chance to really study it, but I just feel like you have to have a really good memory if you're lying. If you're telling the truth, you don't have to have a good memory, because your truths are so simple. It's easy. Did I have a smoke today? No, I don't smoke. It's easy. Versus, did you have a smoke today? Okay. Are you asking me if Shane, the Black Swan, are you asking me if I had a smoke? Are you asking me if I would take a cigarette and I put it in my mouth and inhale the smoke? Is that what you're telling me right now? Is that what you're asking me? Because I really need to know the question that you're asking me right now. Are you asking me if I smoked Players International? Or are you asking me if I smoke Rothman Special? Because that's a big difference, because I know I didn't smoke Rothmans, but I'm not sure about this. But what are you asking me? And you start coming up with stuff. And you have to make up an alibi and say, well, I wasn't actually at 7-Eleven. I was actually at this grocery store and then at this. And then your times are all messed up and everything. Instead of just saying, yeah, I did have a drink. Yes, I did. Yes. What gave you the clue? Was it the fact that my fingers are yellow? Was it the fact that I have smoke coming out of my hair? What was the dead giveaway? So that's why I say you have to have a really good memory if you are a liar. If you're a truth teller, you don't have to have a good memory, because you're just telling the truth. You don't have to try and reinvent the story. And what happens with these long format interviews is the longer these guys go, the more lies come out because they can't remember their story. They're like, I don't know, because it was made up. I lied about everything, so I don't know times. Times are blurry. It could be 15 seconds. It might have been 5 minutes. I don't know, man. Because if I tell you a time and it's wrong, that means I'm a liar, and I don't want to tell you guys that I'm a liar. So I just say, I don't know. Under stress, because we're not used to stress as a security company, that we lose track of time. Yeah, that's because you're lying. Anyways, let's go back.
Process after that.
So you go through all of the skills.
It's not skills. We have guys that come to us that the skills are not what they need to be, but we as a team can collectively teach that. But what we can't teach is if you're not a jackass.
Yeah.
Right? Can you work well with a team? Can you think of people besides yourself? And sometimes that can't be taught. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can. Mm-hmm. But and so that's important. Those physical skills, the hard skills and the soft skills can be taught. And we have quite a collection of guys that do that.
Man, we have some statements from your guys here, and I don't know if you want me to read any names, but I will.
No, they said they're fine with as long as just first names. Yeah.
I mean, here's just, Blake, combat proven Marine.
I think this is where Brian gets a little nervous. Like, yeah, we're good. Nothing's off. Well, some things are on the table, like just first name, maybe just first initials.
Appears more talent than everyone else. I mean, you have SEALs, world-renowned jiu-jitsu people, 22 years on SWAT, professional athletes with tactical careers. I mean, 22 years as a Navy SEAL, Marine and 30-year cop and SWAT commander. I mean, these guys know what the fuck they're doing, and they're no stranger to dangerous work.
No, and
I think the easiest way to vet these guys, these ex-military guys, is, do you like to watch porn? And do you have porn on your phone? Do you have porn on your computer? And they're like, yeah, I do. It's like, okay, you're in, because we're going to use that evidence against you one day in the future. Are you okay with that? Yeah, I guess. How much do I make and all this? Well, you're going to make pretty good money, and everything is going to be under the table, discreet. But if you're okay with that and you give us some evidence to use against you, this is how we can bond our brotherhood. It's called framing. We can frame you in the future. But if you're not okay with that, you don't have to join us. But I'm telling you, on the other side, if you just cough up everything, you had affairs, whatever you did, tell us, show us, and you're in the brotherhood. Because we're not going to betray you. It's only if you betray us, we're going to expose this stuff, and we're going to say, we're going to show your phone, we're going to show your computer, we're going to expose you and say you are into child porn. But if you're with us, and if you don't disagree with us, man, the world is your oyster, bro. You can fly in Egyptian planes, wherever. Yeah, I did say Egyptian planes. Talk about that a little bit later. Candace is on to something. Like, if people don't understand that there's a tripartite relationship with Israel, Egypt, and the United States of America, I think you've been sleeping under a rock for a while. We're going to talk about that. There is a connection. Why do you think they always meet in Israel when they're talking about, in Egypt when they're talking about Hamas? Why do you think they meet there? Just for fun? Egypt is considered neutral, so Israel can go there and meet and talk with Hamas leaders, and so could the United States of America. And Israel and Egypt exchange secret operative information back and forth, left, right, and center, constantly. For years, they've been doing this stuff. They've been sharing information with each other. And the U.S. shares information with not only Israel, most likely with Egypt. And you don't want me to go down that rabbit hole. I'm telling you. I will cough up things like a canary, like you won't believe. But I'm just saying, don't be naive and think that they don't have relationships. GIS, Mossad, CIA, they all have connections, as in they all share information, not obviously all their top secret information, but they share operations. They teach each other how to operate, how to function, how to police citizens. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Talk about it. Man, I can't believe I've already gone on for an hour and 45 minutes. I'm telling you, there's lots in here. We're just scratching the surface here. That's why I'm trying to help unpack this video, which maybe someday will be taken down. I don't know, might be used as evidence in a courtroom. I don't know, but there's so much stuff in this video that it's shockingly amazing what this guy is again, he's singing like a canary.
They come in with that, but we have a saying that says, because they come in with that kind of pedigree and they're vouched in based on that a lot of the time. But we have a saying that your past achievements or affiliation are not equal to your current capability.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they still have to come show that they can do that stuff still and still have the hard set, but still have the soft set to
make sure your skills match your ego.
Right. And your resume.
Yeah.
And so it's and that also builds cohesiveness. And I've never, in my years as a cop, or until we started this group, even at the prior company, we didn't have it. It was a weird relationship between the team and the guy who owned it. With this one, we got grown-ass men when we finish training telling each other they love them, and then we leave.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is the ongoing training look like in integrity?
It's a mandatory. I mean, the guys are required to do it by our written policy 40 hours a year, and then 20 of it has to be internally and 20 of it has to be can be externally. Most of the guys, I did the averages and I sent in our training logs, and we keep them electronically so that they can see that they're time date stamped with what we did, and why we did it. And most guys get around 200. Some of the guys are getting 400 hours of training a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's advanced level. It's not sitting around like in cop days where you're watching videos of how to get along better with people that don't think like you. It's real things that are applicable to what we're out there doing right now today, and in how we can raise the next level. And then it's ongoing. There's an expectation for it. And we've lost guys because they didn't keep the hours. And tell them, and they were good humans. I mean, good people that just timelines couldn't line up, or things going on.
It's interesting that people categorize people as, these people were good humans. Yeah, they probably got tired of watching stuff films and all kinds of crazy stuff that you guys had to watch in order to get in. They probably got sick of that. And you're like, yeah, they were good human beings. That's why we had to let them go. It's weird, right?
At home, and so they had to get laid off or furloughed and told, hey, when you come back and start all over, but the process started all over. So
I would like to. I mean, we had a little conversation before we jumped in on the interview, and when you told me, the process that you had developed, to be vouched for, to work for integrity, the actual training pipeline, all the guys on the detail have to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I mean, I think that's a phenomenal way to hire for a security firm. On top of that, I mean, the ongoing training, I mean, you had brought up medical when we were chatting upstairs. You had brought up, obviously, firearms training. I mean, you even brought up etiquette classes that you would bring people on to the range and ask them what fork they're going to use.
Yes.
So you are very, very detail oriented.
You have to be. you're in kind of a zero fail. And, you know, we see that now of work here is I tell guys that come in from the law enforcement side, it's like, man, back when we were cops, if something happened to them and they're in your beat, or 10 cars got stolen, or, 50 mailboxes got bashed, you went out and you're just like, sorry, and took the report, and you went back to work and you got paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
And, in this industry, if something happens by no fault of your own, even, and like that, you're done, with that client. And there are people in the woodwork that'll come right back in and do it for cheaper, probably. And so it has to be that mentality that we have to be that much better every single time you step on a job. You have to, people say that 110% rule. And I'm like, it's 110%, but it's 110% of something that has to be the benefit, the big picture, not yourself. Everything, the whole job, the detail. And you get guys together and you put them through that mess to get on the team, and you've developed something that can't be replicated. I mean, we vacation together and we Christmas party together.
It's a brotherhood.
It is. And truly can think about everybody, the client, the team, the big picture, what we're believing in. Then the team gets together, and then they authorize them to get the tattoo. And then they get to get a tattoo, and that, brothers in Christ for eternity.
All right. So I think they, can you guys still see me? I think I probably got a bit of I think what's called a copyright strike. If you play something too much on live, it just kind of goes away. So let me just see. I think it disappeared for a bit. What's there? Can you guys see Shawn again? Because I think it went dark for a second. One thing I wanted to share, maybe I'll wrap this up because I think it's important to continue this, but what's his name? Brian said that he used to work for an organization, and they were called, let me see if I can find these guys. Let me see if I can find this company, because his company is called Integrity. So here, let me see if I can find it. All right, so this is the company. I'm like 99% sure that this is the company that he worked for before. Can you guys see this? So this is called Global Security Specialist. So he had a bit of a falling out with these guys and like what they're doing, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But the guy that owned this company, his name is called Greg Schaffer. Used to be a former FBI guy. So the reason why I bring this up is because later, and we'll probably make another video about this maybe on Monday or something, but what was I gonna say? In the interview that we're watching, Shawn Ryan will ask the question, was there any indication from Charlie Kirk that maybe he was in trouble, that somebody could take him out or assassinate him, or there were bad actors, somebody was going to cause trouble for him? He said no. Then Shawn Ryan said that, are any of the rumors correct that you guys had any ties with Israel or any of this kind of stuff in any of your operations? And he said, no, not at all. Nothing. That's all rumors with Mossad and all this stuff. So it's interesting that this organization that Brian used to work for was created by a former FBI agent known as Greg Schaffer. This guy is known to be a Zionist as well, and also he's talked about a two-state solution. He used to be on every once in a while they would have this guy. You could look him up. I'll have to look him up as well to fact check all this stuff. But he used to be almost like a correspondent on Fox News, where he would show up from time to time to talk about what's going on in Gaza, what's going on with Israel and all this. And he supported a two-state solution for Israel. So you can't help having an organization that talks to the people at the tippity top within Israel's borders if you're a security company. If you're talking about potential threats that can harm your business, enterprise, brand, staff members, whatever that, like, the higher up you are, the more you're going to correspond with Israel, as in you're going to start listening, learning about their various tactics. And people probably don't know this stuff, which is why I'm trying to take my time on this stuff. There's a company called Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange. Okay, it was created from a guy that's a Jew, that's an Israeli, I should say. He's an Israeli. So he created this company in the state of Georgia called the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange. So what does this mean? It means that law enforcement in 30 states would exchange information with Israel when it comes to police tactics. Wow. Yes. You guys are being taught how to manage your civilians by Israelis, specifically taught by this company called Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange. The exchange idea is you exchange information. You extract information from Israel in order to learn how to better police, how to detonate bombs, all this kind of stuff, because they have a lot of experience. And you might be asking yourself, okay, Shane, well, where did Israel learn its police tactics? Because they seem to have issues in Israel. Where do they get their tactics from? Well, wouldn't you like to learn that Israel got its tactics from Canada? What? Shane, this is the greatest conspiracy theory ever. You're telling me that Israel learned all its police tactics from Canada? Yes. Yes, I am. I am telling you that. And I will be talking about this in another video. So there is a circle that we can start to begin to complete here. So think about this for a second. Just use some simple arithmetic. Who's older, Canada or Israel? Most of you, most Christians, including myself, off the top would go, well, Israel's thousands of years old. It's obviously Israel. No, talking about the state of Israel. Who's older, Canada or modern Israel? You would be right if you said Canada is older because Israel came into being in 1948. Talking about current Israel. So they didn't have anyone to teach them how to operate as a nation unless they met with people from the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom was under a king or a queen back then. And we are under a king. Israel is a democratic state, if you will. They're not a monarchy. They don't operate under a king. But they kind of like the idea that one person in charge makes all the decisions. They kind of like that idea. They kind of envy that idea. So they actually had people come over to Canada to learn how we operated our police. So one of the things that they were running into is if they were defending a region in Israel that was heavily Muslim, they're like, if we put one of our guys in there that practices Judaism, that is a Jew, he's going to get murdered as a police officer in that area. So what we got to do is we have to have people that actually understand the culture of the community, because there's Christians, there's Muslims, there's Jews, and I forget, Catholics or something, but there's another religion as well. And they have to learn how to operate. So what they did is they modeled after the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as in, we're not going to put one of our guys in our own family region, our own family chapter. So because everyone was so connected in Israel, and you have all the various religions, they felt it would not be a good strategy to have a person become a police officer for Israel and have that person stay home, like in their own area of where their family is, because then it could be like he said, she said, but this police guy is not agreeing with you because you're not from the family, but he only seems to arrest people that are not from his family, and he agrees with people that are in his family. So they followed the model that the RCMP used, which is, when you become an RCMP, you don't get the town that you lived in. You have to go to somewhere like Newfoundland or BC or up north. Usually they send you up north for some reason. And that is the model that they used, because they saw the RCMP learned something, that if you put a family member in their own community, corruption goes up. So they didn't want that. So they modeled it. And now they actually have gotten to the point where now people go to Israel for tactics on how to manage the civil population. And how they think is quite unique. And this is what the US is actually starting to use them as a model. And they use this company called Georgia International Law Enforcement Agency, which, again, one of their main places that they teach law enforcement, or not necessarily law enforcement tactics, like how to shoot a weapon and all, how to arrest people, but the strategies behind it. They actually spend a lot of time in Texas. And if you're an FBI guy, you're going to have some type of relations with Israel. And Brian worked for this company called Global Security Specialists, and then had an outing with them, didn't like something. I don't know what happened. Ended up creating his own company called Integrity. He said the stuff that they did there made his stomach turn. Weird, right? Weird. So then you have this other organization. Let me just show you real quick this one. I don't want to lose people. I'm doing this for kind of like documentation purposes, because I don't want this stuff to be erased, because people forget. They forget things. They're like, yeah, no, I don't remember you saying that stuff, Shane. I don't remember you saying that Israelis were once trained and under the RCMP and all this kind of stuff. And I don't believe that there's any connections with Israel and the United States law enforcement. I don't think there's any ties with that whatsoever. I think you're just being anti-Semitic, and you're just making up stuff. It's like, oh, okay, well, you need to stick around a little bit longer, because we're starting to connect the dots a little bit. And this organization here is called, like I mentioned, the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange. They're known as GILEE, G-I-L-E-E. This guy is actually the founder of this organization. He was actually born in Romania, but then moved to Israel, lived there, was raised there, and then moved, I believe, to the United States, and then opened up his organization. And now he actually teaches their various programs, briefings in 30 states. Not all of them, but 30 states are on board. And this guy is an Israeli on your soil, meaning the exchange program is they learn from Israelis learn from Americans how to take care of the public better. Because if you do it the old school way, Notice how they look like RCMPs on the left. If you do it the old school way, where you just shut everything down right away and go after people and whatever it is, it becomes harmful. So what they've learned is Israel has to be more of a community police officer. There are some guys that are at the tippity top of the police in Israel where they don't even use a gun. They just walk into a community because they know how to de-escalate something. And they can talk to people in Hebrew, in Arabic, in English, in Greek. They can speak to them and calm everything down. Because they realize that you can't always defeat everyone with a gun. So this is why Americans are trying to figure this stuff out. And because you guys have an overrun of Muslims in New York and all these coming across the border and all this kind of stuff, you're going to need more of a cooperation with Israel because they know how to work with Muslims or handle them, I guess, in Israel. So you have an organization founded in the United States of America that specifically names itself an exchange company to exchange information from Israel and the United States of America. And the Israelis at one time were taught by the UK and by Canada how to police properly, because in the US, you guys do things differently. And they're like, you guys are crazy. Like, look at all this anarchy. You guys are crazy. You need to be more like Israel. As in, you need to handle things more like how we handle things. How do we handle things? Well, if you speak against us, we come after you. This is them saying, it's not me. And I got receipts too. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I think it's important to know that you Americans, you operate differently than how we operate in Canada when it comes to our police. Our police can just come in anytime, knock on our door. We can't shoot them. We don't have this standing law where we can actually fight back and all this. We don't have that. Israel wants to teach you guys that, how to do that. Israel wants to teach you how to obey your government. Take away perhaps the rights to have a gun. You think I'm kidding about this stuff? They're actually teaching it to your sheriff's department, your law enforcement agencies, how to deal with people. And it's the same way as how our police deal with us. We don't have a lot to say here in Canada, but Israel's trying to help you guys see the light. It's so weird, right? We don't like it at all. But you're having Israelis teach your sheriffs, because your sheriffs are elected. They're not necessarily the best trained when it comes to law enforcement, because they're spending so much time trying to figure out who to hire and who to fire in their agencies to make sure that they're all falling in line, that they don't know how to treat people in towns. So then you have Israeli type companies teach you guys the right way to handle people, handle riots and all kinds of stuff. And one of those ways is eventually to take away your guns from you guys. I know you guys don't like that stuff. We don't have any guns here in Canada, and it is kind of scary because they can kick our door down. But even if I had a gun, it's not easy because I got to store my bullets somewhere else. So if somebody did come into my house, I would have to pause them, go downstairs to my safe, unlock the combination, take the bullets out, go find my gun, put my gun together, put it together, and then, not so in America. You guys can blast anyone you want if they come into your house. You got rules for that. We don't. And Israel is trying to teach you guys, as in your government agencies, your sheriffs, your police, how to do it the right way, which is take away your guns. Take away that right to defend yourselves, because we know how to do it better than you. Just look up the organization. Look up Georgia International Law Enforcement Agency that are now operating in 30 states. And they have hundreds of programs. They have thousands of officers, sheriffs, police from the United States learning from these guys, which again, the tippity top guy is an Israeli. And he goes back to Israel. They have their tactics that work. They have their tactics that don't work. And they exchange with Americans. You guys are exchanging how to operate, not only with police, but security guards, agents, companies like Integrity. They're teaching them how to police properly. It's weird, right? So, yeah, we're just kind of scratching the surface. So if you think Candace is crazy, I think she's actually holding back. She's holding back because the deeper down this rabbit hole you go towards Charlie Kirk, you start to realize there are more organizations involved. And we haven't even got to Egypt. We haven't even had a chance to talk about how Egypt is involved. Like, you guys have to think about this. Like, we're not pervy to what goes on in the world. We're really not. If you think about something as simple as the 6-Day War, people go, well, it was a miracle that Israel actually defeated Egypt and all the surrounding nations in like 6 days. It was actually amazing. Well, what had actually happened for that 6-day war for Russia to be, for Israel to be successful in 6 days, they stole, or they caused an Iraqi pilot to defect with one of their fighter planes that was sophisticated, defect to Israel. They paid him like $1 million or something like that to go away, to disappear. And they took his plane, his Iraqi plane, disassembled it, rebuilt it, flew it in the air, pushed the limits of it so that they understood if their Israeli Air Force came against, because the Egyptians had the same type of plane, they said, if we need to know what this Iraqi plane can do, because if we don't, we're going to get destroyed. So they pushed it. They pushed the envelope on that Iraqi plane that mirrors this same planes that they have with Egypt, and they found a weakness in that plane. They found, man, if you attack it from this angle, they don't have a chance. So then they were practicing coming at these Egyptian planes, and they were in the air practicing all this stuff. Then Russia contacted Egypt and said, hey, did you know that the Israelis they're about to invade Egypt? Did you know that? They created a rumor and said to Egypt, hey, they're actually going to attack you. They got tanks and all this stuff. They're coming for you. Egypt panicked. They're like, what? Oh, this is horrible. We got to get our tanks. So then they took all their tanks to the border of Israel. Meanwhile, Israel was already in the air practicing all their stuff. They've been practicing for months for this type of scenario. And they saw that they were actually on the verge of being attacked by Egypt. So then they went after their airport, and they destroyed just about all of their planes. They destroyed the whole airport, took out all their planes before they even had a chance to take off. Then Jordan and Syria and all these other countries said, hey, Israel's at war with Egypt. We got to stop Israel. But before they could, Israel flew over their airports, took out all their airports. Within a day, they had air superiority over 90% of the regions around them within a day. So imagine being the only ones that can fly now with your Israeli Air Force. You can take out anybody now. If there's a tank moving, you can take them out, whatever. So that's why the war was ended in 6 days. But Russia tipped off Egypt to cause them to go to war against Israel, and Egypt was unprepared because Israel was way prepared. It's kind of like a false flag kind of a thing. It's kind of weird. But that's how the 6-day war started and stopped. It was so fast. Yeah, so in some ways, yeah, it was a miracle. But they don't tell you about the defecting of an Iraqi soldier that had the plane that the Israeli Air Force took over and pushed it to its limits. So anyways, enough of that stuff. But there's more to this rabbit hole. That's it for today's video. We've already went 2 hours, so I'm going to probably do this, continue on where we left off. I'll be interested to see what Candace has to say about the Egyptian planes. I know she's talking a lot about that lately. But there is a relationship that we don't even understand with Russia and Israel. Because I remember a few years ago, President Zelensky went to Israel to ask for the blueprints for the Iron Dome. And I don't think it was Bibi. There was a different prime minister, or a different prime minister. He said, no, no, go away. And so Zelensky was so mad. But the reason why Israel didn't want to give him the blueprints is because Russia maintained the airspace over Syria, which meant if Syria attacked Israel, Israel was allowed to retaliate, and Russia would turn a blind eye and say, yeah, you know what, Syria, you don't attack Israel. So Russia would defend their airspace unless Israel was doing a counterattack, because they were attacked first. They're allowed to retaliate. So Russia would say, yeah, you can go ahead. So Israel and Russia have a relationship even to this day that they don't attack each other. And I have to ask yourself why, because the USA is always against Russia. Russia, evil, evil, evil. China, China, China. But not so much with Israel, because they have relationships with the surrounding regions as well, unbeknownst to us. But they didn't want to give the blueprints to Ukraine because they thought, well, if Russia takes over one of those states and they capture the Iron Dome, America is going to be ticked, because they're the ones that designed the Iron Dome for the Israelis to use. And there's a rule that says that they can't give the blueprints to anyone else. It's just for Israel to use. And if Russia got their hands on the blueprints and made an Iron Dome, can you imagine? Russia would be unstoppable. And imagine if they sold the blueprints to China and they had the Iron Dome. So that there's a reason why it only stays in Israel. Thanks to the United States of America. But yeah, they have all kinds of connections that we're not privy to. All we're told is, hey, we're an enemy of these guys and that and all this stuff, right? Anyways, that's it for today's video. I hope you got something. I know it was a long video. Hope you watch it again. I hope you fact check the heck out of all the stuff that I said, because I'm telling you, once you go down that rabbit hole, man, it's a dark and deep rabbit hole. It's crazy, but you'll know that I'm telling the truth. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.
Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fueled this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed.